Good morning, everyone. So I would like to invite on the stage our panelist, Sharon Dimanche, Paddy Knudsen, and Mr. Wolfram Zonzer. But also we'll have Mr. Francisco Luciani, who is going to join us remotely. Please join us on the stage. Good morning again. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, welcome to this panel discussion on the theme of migrant and diaspora contributions, rescuing champions towards achieving the SDGs by 2030. Today, on the occasion of the United Nations International Day of Family Remittances, we gathered to explore the significant role that remittances and diaspora investment play in advancing the SDGs. It's now widely acknowledged that these financial flows are crucial in putting food on the table, providing healthcare, education, housing, and driving economic growth, creating jobs and local development in communities. Over the past 2 days, we have been inspired by numerous initiatives, experiences, and business models that have the potential to be replicated and scaled up. These success stories provide invaluable insights into how we can maximize the contribution of migrants and diaspora communities. However, many challenges and obstacles continue to hinder realizing the full potential of these contributions and require collective action from government, private sector, and society at large. This is what SDG 17 on partnerships is all about. And then we just saw that some government are doing very well, and then their efforts have been recognized in facilitating remittances, putting in place the adequate environment for facilitating remittances and diaspora investment, which is very encouraging. But also we should have in mind that we are way off track in achieving the SDGs. And that's why we are here to discuss how we can improve and then how we can rescue the SDGs. I think that remittances are critical in doing so, and they are the means of implementation that can help us achieve the SDGs at global level, but also at personal level. A lot has been said during these 2 days on the need to promote financial and digital inclusion, creating the enabling environment, and support the safe and impactful diaspora investments. And then we had the opportunity during yesterday, where we had 2 separate tracks to go deeper into these issues. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from our panel members their insights their experiences on these challenges and the perspectives that they can offer on the way forward. We are heading towards the SDG Summit in September 2023. And then we need to call on the international community on accelerating the implementation of the commitment taken, but also rescuing the SDG in general. So today we have with us Sharon Dimanche, the Chief of Mission at the International Organization of Migration in Kenya. Her work focuses on addressing irregular migration challenges, and then she works with several governments for the implementation of the Global Compact for migration. Also, we have Paddy Sinyanga Knudsen, Vice President of the Global Research Forum on Diaspora and Transnationalism. She is a development economist and migration governance expert. So her work covers many areas, including regional integration, development cooperation, and governance. We have also with us Wolfram Zonzer, Head of Program for Employment Promotion in Africa with the diaspora at WIDU. So it's a project implemented by GIZ and supports employment promotion in the informal sector in Africa. Also joining us remotely, we have Francesco Luciani, Head of Unit Migration and Forced Displacement, the Director General of International Partnerships of the European Commission. So previously he worked at many EU delegations, including in Chad and Ukraine, but also he worked in Brussels as the Commission Director General of Home Affairs. So this panel, I think, has a critical role in guiding us and trying to bring all the discussion that we've been having for the last 2 days and then put it into perspective. In doing so, I will start with addressing the first question to Sharon Dimanche. So we all heard about the challenges of the high cost, and Africa being the region with the highest cost of sending money and remittances. This cost is the SDG 10.C target, which is to be implemented or achieved by 2030, but we all know that is still a challenge. But also, the good news that we heard that the mobile money has the potential to reduce that cost, and actually it is reducing that cost. So according to you, what could be the strategies based on all the discussion that we've been having that can be implemented to maximize the contribution of remittances and reducing the cost, but also taking into consideration that behind each dollar that the migrant is sending, there are stories of migrants leaving the continent to live abroad, but also migrants within Africa that most of the time are not acknowledged or recognized. And then also we heard that remittance sent intra-Africa is 1/5 of the global remittance for Africa. So can you give us your perspective on this? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liwatin. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Fine, thank you. I like communicating. Liwadin, before I get into your question, probably we are here today and talking about migration, the Global Compact on Migration, and I thought we need to first look back. I know at the opening we had some statement from the President And we noted the number of migrants that are on the move, where people are actually not living in their countries of origin. So I thought we should first highlight to get to know exactly the numbers. We know that there are about 281 million people living outside their countries of origin. And in Africa, by 2020, I think we had about 21 million Africans living in other African countries. And most of these, of course, are living in different parts of the world. We also noted that most of them actually now embedded in Europe, besides the Gulf. We have had for the last 2 days, in terms of remittances, over 600 and 600 billion, coming into globally, but of course in Africa, looking at 100 billion, and in Kenya, where we are today, 4 billion. 4 billion US dollar in terms of remittances. And I'm honored, I think the Central Bank of Kenya governor has just left, but the fact that they highlighted that was one of now the remittances surpassing the foreign exchange in the country. Yes, those are very, very good, I would say, initiatives, and we take note of the fact that that is the contribution from the diaspora. And I wanted to also highlight the examples that what we are doing as IOM. We have some programs on migration for development in Africa. And again, coming back to Kenya, how Kenya was actually the first member state of the IOM when we started the program on migration for development in Africa, bringing Africans coming back to contribute to development back home. And most of them have actually returned. And I will give an example specifically of Somalia, where to date, in the past decade and a half, we have over 700 diaspora experts in over 70 government institutions, including Ministry of Health, Education, Foreign Affairs, the Prime Minister's Office, the President. All these are diaspora who have been placed to fill in the skills gap. They have worked, they are sending money back home and contributing to the development back home, meaning they are actually, if we utilize them very well, they rescue the SDG 2030. And going back to the pandemic, we have seen how most of the diaspora, their contribution, and I'll give an example specifically of Dr. Abdi Aziz, a Somali-British national. He's one of the few infectious disease doctors who did actually contribute significantly during that time of the pandemic. And he's one of the beneficiaries who returned during the migration for development in Africa. These are very good initiatives. They are contributing. But one of the biggest challenges, which you have highlighted, the high cost of remittances. Now, I will use an example of Pedro. I think you're here. He was painting a picture and saying, if you can just all of us imagine, let us reflect. Let us remove the remittances, the 600 plus that we have received of US dollar. How would things look like? Just imagine, we are in this room. And then, assuming that we actually put conditions in place to take care of these migrants. I'll use an example. We have all these people who are on the move, the high cost, of course, of remittances, but at the same time, there's a lot of abuse, exploitation. And people are working really hard to make the money, send back home under these very difficult conditions. So imagine we are getting 600 plus in terms of remittances, but if we had very good conditions, we prepare our migrants. When you think about migration, what do you actually do? For us in IOM, we have a 360-degree sort of preparation, where you talk about migrants, prepare them with their family members so that they have the right knowledge, the right job opportunities out there, the right skills. We had the ambassador from the Philippines this morning talking about the return programs that are in place. And during migration, what do you actually do? As people are out there sending money back to their home countries, they are in those destination countries. What are the conditions of living? We have had some reports. The ILO report that came out recently highlights the abuse, the exploitation, the wage differences, where migrants actually even getting much less. So I would like all of us here in this room to really think that if we prepared these migrants properly, don't you think we would have doubled the remittances? And that's I wanted to highlight that. Then the ethical recruitment, that's a big of a challenge. The recruitment agencies, actually what they are doing, they're extorting funds from migrants, and there's a high cost of migration, whereby migrants are actually going to borrow money. Some of them sell their family property to be able to migrate. And once they're out there, they're involved in both debt bondage. They actually are going to work, use their hard-earned money to pay for the debts they incurred when they were migrating. Now, assuming we had proper, regular, and transparent migration process, do you think these migrants would have spent a lot of money paying for the debts? Of course, would have had low cost of migration. So quickly coming on the strategies, which I wanted us to really think first before I get into the strategies. One, we need to prepare our migrants to have a 360-degree preparation in all the phases of migration. That's very critical. Then two, to also look at fair, ethical recruitment, promoting the legal pathways of migration so that migrants don't have to spend a lot of money on migration costs. They can utilize their money properly, send back money home. In Kenya, I'll give an example of what we call integrity recruitment system. It's a transparent system that we use on recruitment. And we have agencies that have subscribed to this. They are being trained and able to actually carry out ethical principles of recruitment. The last one is on data. We don't know how many migrants are out there. We don't have a full understanding in terms of who is remitting funds. So IOM has been carrying out lots of research within the region, at the continent, on remittance and their potential use in migrant remittance receiving households. If we realize and appreciate the impact of the remittances at the very small household level, I think we are able to plan better and be able to have policies that are informed by the evidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharon, for reminding us that behind these financial flows, there are people, there are migrants, and also reminding us that some of them are facing difficult conditions on the move, but also in the host countries. I think we should have that also in mind, that these are important aspects that we need to highlight. But also, when we talk about remittances, diaspora, so there is the other aspect that we are not only talking about low-skilled migrants, there are very high-skilled migrants. And then these remittances that the countries are enjoying in terms of offering them the policy space that is needed to implement the different reforms that they have to do, also is compensating a little bit the brain drain that the countries are facing when these skilled, highly skilled migrants are moving abroad. So talking about the diaspora, and Paddy, you've been working on this area for quite a long time. And then also taking into consideration what Sharon was sharing with us about the conditions of migrations, and also looking beyond the 2030 commitments. And then we have the tendency to focus on the cost, but the cost is just an indicator about what should have been done and then what we should do. So what do you think could be some of the specific commitments that goes beyond the cost that the international community in general, but also the different stakeholders could consider in sustaining and expanding the positive impact of remittances, diaspora finance on the countries, the countries of origin, but also the hosting country?
Thank you, and I think, thank you, Sharon, for setting the scene for us. I was just thinking, as we are in this Oscar mode, who is celebrating and who is benefiting? And I think I was quite proud to hear the Gambia dedicate its award to the diaspora. And almost as a side thought, and maybe a recommendation that goes forward, I think we ought to be giving awards to those who've actually supported this industry, those that have made it possible for us to even gather today and have this as a topic, those that provide the space in the different areas that we're working with, whether we're looking at the value chain on remittances, whether we're talking about financial flows that come from migrants and diaspora. And maybe that's worth considering as a category, as a matter of fact. Because I think that we are celebrating, the remittance industry is celebrating, the international community is celebrating because we're mandated to. The diaspora organizations are celebrating in terms of what we see as the achievements in advocacy, a lot of work that goes into the research. But I'm not quite sure about the 1 billion families that we are hashtagging today. So I think that we ought to really think about how do we move that. So your question really sits very well. And I think that in relation then to the, to the SDGs, I think what we often, as we have already said today, we have to be real smart and strategic about achieving these goals that we've made. And while these targets that have been made, we need to realize that we're working in a space where we've got limited resources, limited options, and we actually have the limited participation of all those who contribute to this important agenda. And thus I think that that whole of society approach is very important, because governments and the international community cannot do this alone. Or at least they stand to fail, as we have heard from many remarks that have been made with regard to the 2030 agenda. So I was also just thinking, about this holistic picture that we have to look at and the whole ecosystem that we have. And I think the GCM indeed provides us in a very broad way through these various objectives. And while we often focus on GCM 19 and 20 when we talk about contributions that come from migrants, actually one of the most important and what we in the civil society space call the cornerstone objective is Objective 5. You knock down or you achieve and tick legal pathways, you might as well have a version 2.0 of the GCM with probably fewer objectives. So I think that as we think about that, one of the things that we can look at and we can learn from the award winners today is to focus on data. And we heard from the central bank governor how he talked about learning from data. And I think that we can also learn from diaspora, we can learn from migrant organizations, we can learn from the behavior we can learn from the patterns as well, but I think most importantly, we can learn from the initiatives that are coming through, even with these limited resources, limited channels, and also the limited space in which engagement is taking place. So I think that one bit that is missing is expanding the space strategically and deliberately for their engagement. And we need to include them because we can't address the underlying issues and the barriers that we've unpacked in the regulatory space, in the cost space, in the investment space, but also we can use innovation and technology to leverage because time is ticking and the needs are plenty. So just coming in there as well, I think what we also realize from the diaspora organization space is that, you know, when you look at the GCM itself, you see references to remittances. I think it comes up about 12 times when you do a search. And then you've got investment, it comes up once, and it's in relation to diaspora. So I think a question that we have had from the diaspora and the migrant space is that we need a new reference point. We really need a new reference point, and I think we have a good opportunity through the reviews, but we also have good opportunities in other spaces as well, just looking at the GCM. We know it's non-binding, we're aware of that, but we're also aware of the potential and the power that it has. And in fact, GCM 19 is very set and clear. It gives countries a wonderful platform talking about these conditions that would look for this full contribution. So, you know, but I think one thing that we miss is measurement. We need a measurement tool, and a very objective measurement tool. Because right now we have a global compact on migration that doesn't have teeth to bite through the many migration challenges. And you know, we're glad to see that there is some movement around an effective monitoring system that will support review mechanisms. And maybe very lastly, what we also think that is needed is, you know, there's sort of a global north standard that's there on the unskilled. There's many migrants that remain categorized as unskilled because the recognition sits still in the hand of the employer and not with the labor market where they're actually participating. So how do we change the pen so that we have others really unqualified, or rather appropriately qualifying migrants who remain unskilled, though they are engaged in the labor market, so that, you know, all things, including cost, will increase remittances, as Sharon has pointed out. And very lastly, I think we need to, when we look at that expansion place, right, we're talking about that long run of the positive impact of financial flows. It's for all actors, not just governments, not the UN system, not just the UN system, multilateral donors, but we're talking about private sector. And we also understand, for instance, through the GCM, you've got a multi-partnership fund that's been made available. We were all very excited, even in the civil society space, to see this coming through, but quite disappointed with how it ended up. So how do you open that space? I think the space is closed to particularly two partners. One is civil society, diaspora organizations, and the whole range of non-state actors who remain in footnotes, and I think they need to move in the main text, and the private sector. We're missing the private sector in these partnership funds, and while we are afraid of engaging with the private sector because we don't think we can set the rules, but I think we've got the right instruments for us to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paddy, for bringing on to the discussion these critical issues about the importance of having the right tools, about data. Data is critical. We've been using data since day one for this event to highlight the key issues in terms of volumes, cost, and so on. But still, a lot of data should be collected, and then the recognition award giving to the central government, the Central Bank of Kenya is one of the, I think, is a recognition about the role that data should have in highlighting the key issues. So thank you for highlighting all these important, let's say, commitment or recommendations that we need to take into consideration. But we need also to look at the role of the different stakeholders. And then today we have with us a key stakeholder, Mr. Francesco Luciani from the European Union. So the EU is one of the key development partners in supporting the diaspora organization and promoting the innovative private sector models. So what is the role that the EU could play? And we know that the EU is already playing an important role. So what could the EU do more in supporting these initiatives, both for remittances and diaspora investment? And if you have any examples, successful collaboration that you have between private sector, public sector entities, international organization. So if you could tell us more about what the EU is doing in this regard. Thank you.
First of all, many thanks for the invitation to be with you, and I'm really very sorry and apologetic for not being able to be physically present. It's a great event, and I really missed not to be there, which it was made impossible at the last minute. And thanks also for having made possible this online conversation. It's difficult to reply in short because there are a number of initiatives on which the European Union is involved, and I would like already to start from a little bit broader consideration, picking up also some of the elements that have been raised by previous speakers. Because first of all, I would like to stress that diaspora is a crucial partner for the European Union. First of all, we have been working with the diaspora organization within the European Union since years. We also have programs to support them. We have a program called EUDIF that is implemented by ICMPD since years, and we are about to launch a new edition. We have also global forum for the diaspora organizations in Europe. Next edition will be on the 17th of October. And we also have programs to strengthen the capacities of the diaspora organizations let's say, to deliver in all aspects of their work, including and notably to work more together with their countries of origin, authorities and civil society organizations, and also to share their competencies, because it's not just about money. It's a diaspora is owner of strong talents that it's important to share with the countries of origin. Not only with the countries of origin, also the European Union benefits from that, but I mean primarily for their origin countries, and our programs will allow also for diaspora members to do this. In addition, we also have been we have been doing a lot of initiatives to promote the reduction of the cost of transfer of remittances. We are absolutely aware of the magnitude of the remittances and their importance for the life of the family and the communities of origin, and also of the impact that they can have for the development and economic growth and social development in general of the communities of origin. The European Union is the second sender in the world after the United States of America of remittances, and the number one for remittances towards Africa. So we have been working a lot on reducing the cost of the transfers along two pathways, I would say. I'm simplifying, of course. One aspect has been the increasing promotion of the use of digital connections, allowing for smoother and quicker and safer transfer. An example is the Prime for Africa project that is implemented by IFAD, that is our partner since many years, also in the organization of the event like this one. And we have concrete initiatives that are ongoing while we speak in many African countries, from Senegal including to Kenya and many others, and where we support countries where remittances have to travel in having better structure at the material, technological, and also institutional level, allowing this smoother and cheaper flow. But also we have done a lot of work at legislative level, because I would say the European Union has been, first of all, with the work internally, but also now we are trying to export it at global level, of a work of transparency, promoting legislation that obliges the main operators to follow transparency rules, because transparency is the basis of competition, and competition is the key tool to reduce the cost. And also to, I would say, more broadly, we with our broader actions, I would say we contributed to create safer environment based on the rule of law. This is key also to reduce the cost and to ensure that investors are let's say, motivated to intervene in countries. So, of course, we know very well that through the reduction of the cost, nevertheless, we have not yet reached, and we are not going to reach, we can admit this, at global level, the target set for 2030 for the 3%. Within the European Union, we predicted that only one member state will be able to respect the target. That will be Italy. But I think it's fair also to say that the European Union is doing much better than the average of the rest of the world in reducing the cost. We have reduced, since the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals, the efforts made by the European Union to reduce the cost have made possible to reduce of the 20% the cost in general of sending the remittances from Europe, and up to the 30% of the reducing the cost direct of the transfers towards Africa. Now we are trying to preach a little bit the verb of transparency and at global level in all the contexts where we work, and we believe that indeed a lot can be done. Let me conclude by saying two things, and I'm happy to come back on that with more details, but I don't want to speak too long. First of all, we are trying to work now on ensuring the connection between the diaspora money and, let's say, bigger investors and investments at local level. So this is something on which we need to work to connect dots, because diaspora's investments, diaspora remittances have to be translated into diaspora investments. This requires work that we are already starting, but we have to expand in order to promote the literacy, financial literacy at local level, and also to enhance the propension of the communities and families to use the money not just for consumption, but for investments and intervention of social interest. But we also need to connect these investments from the diaspora with the investments that can be done at local level. Diaspora cannot go alone, but has to intervene in a context where investments are operating, and also to connect with the bigger lenders, and that can also offer guarantees to expand and multiply the impact of this money, this private money. And we have a very part of our cooperation that goes through investments and loans now and guarantees, which is called the European Social Development Fund Plus, that indeed provides guarantees to big lenders.
Thank
A
you.
second aspect I want to say, and I will really stop there, is also the work that we have been doing on promoting a fair use of and expanded use of legal channels for labor migration. At global level, we have been working a lot with the International Labour Organization. We had a program called Reframe that has promoted at global level the use of fair rules of recruitment that are key, as a previous, I think Mrs. Dimanche had mentioned, as key for, the starting point is key to ensure that the labor migration experience goes well. And also we are going to also to have intense work to enhance, to ensure that the skills of the migrants are recognized in the country's destination, including the European Union, or in any case to give to the migrants, to the would-be migrants, stronger skills in order to be able to match the requirements of the labor market where they're going to work. And we are this is the European Year of the Skills, the 2023, and we are launching talent partnerships specifically with a certain number of countries also to facilitate arrival of skilled migrants in the European Union.
Thank you.
Many thanks.
Thank you very much for enlightening us about some of them. We know that a lot of them, that the EU is implementing these initiatives in supporting better structuring of the diaspora organization, how they deal and connect with their country of origins, and how they can also better contribute to the development of their local communities. And then I think these are very important, as all stakeholders are called upon to collaborate and work together on implementing the different commitments. We have today Mr. Wolfram with us. So Mr. Wolfram, your work on informal sector, and also you are working on enhancing financial inclusion at local level. So based on your experience and how do you see the different roles? We just heard from the EU. We heard also through the last 2 days from the different stakeholders, the diaspora, the international organizations, the civil society. So how do you see these value chains of different stakeholders coming all together in facilitating the achievement of the SDGs that we are all talking about? So because the SDG is about partnerships, and then the difference between the Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals is that all the stakeholders are called upon to collaborate together. So how do you see this value chain when it comes to remittances, the diaspora investment? How can we promote or leverage that potential for achieving the 2030 agenda, but also going beyond that?
Thank you very much for having me on the panel today and for this very good setting of the scenes by colleagues regarding the specific issue of the SDGs. I would like to highlight the specific role also of the diasporas, the diaspora communities, specifically also in Europe, and when Luciani Francesco also highlighted the heightened importance of diaspora communities and diaspora stakeholders in the political sphere, I think that clearly resonates because from our perspective and practical experience, they are not only a major source for funding bottom-up development in many African countries, but they also provide skills, knowledge, and thereby enable change in the local economy. So I think this is a very important role they're having, and that creates positive impact not only on SDG 10C, but also on others like poverty reduction, gender equality, and green transition. From our perspective and experience from the GIZ program, we do a regional program in 6 African countries and in 7 European countries active. We have developed that jointly with the diaspora. So the capacities in terms of digitalization are very high, and I think we have to harness them. And we have to make use of those possibilities to bring the communities and the stakeholders together. So the digital platform we do is leveraging the individual diaspora remittances with ODA budgets and to provide access to funding, coaching to African small enterprises, and thereby create jobs in Africa. We have so far supported 4,500 entrepreneurs, and we have matched private investments of 5.5 million with direct to support to small entrepreneurs, which are in the majority women. And that is an important achievement in terms of creating jobs for women and supporting the SDG for gender equality, as well as the feminist development policy, which is not only very important for the German government, but I think a very important dimension here for local development. A study by the Kenyan Central Bank, for example, revealed that the main recipient of the diaspora remittances are by far women. So there's a great potential that can be harnessed, and diaspora small enterprises platforms who bring together the diaspora and the small enterprises in Africa will enable more finance means and more transformation for sustainable investments into the communities. I think women are by far the one who have most knowledge about how to best transform those local economic situations and invest sustainably. Having said that, I think in the broader perspective, coming back to your question about the different stakeholders, the opportunities we have to bring private actors, private entities and small entrepreneurs in Africa directly together with diaspora interests and the commitment of established diaspora donors in, for example, Europe, is greatly enhanced by digital platforms and can be used and co-create those solutions. So Vido is one example, but I think there's many other examples we've been hearing throughout the last 2 days, and I think the opportunities for moving private public partnerships forward is much enhanced through those digital platforms, and also to bring in the diaspora and the expertise they have in this space to conferences like this, but also to co-create solutions that are based on the knowledge of the local entrepreneurs. So I think the challenge is to bring those parts together, the large programs of the DFIs, of the large multilateral donors, together with the expertise and experiences of the small entrepreneurs. And with the help of digital solutions, I think we can move forward, and also beyond just reducing costs. They are very important to reduce the costs for remittances, but I think there's more opportunities if we look into the specific corridors and with the local stakeholders to bring them in more comprehensively.
Thank you very much. I would like to follow up on that. Yesterday I was discussing with some of the key stakeholders, and then one of the issues when it comes to digitization, then we all know that there is a lot of potential over there, but when you go on the ground and you look that people are still using a lot of cash, and then although the cost using digital platforms is reduced, but there are still some challenges when it comes to the foreign exchange rate, the using of different currencies here and there, some regulatory challenges of moving money from one country to another. So all these are contributing to encouraging people to stay more in the informal sector and sending money through the informal sector. So can you like tell us or provide us with like 1 or 2 points of how can we move from this situation where informality is omnipresent on the sector, but also beyond that in the economy, and then how we can encourage people to be more financially included using this digital platform and solutions that the fintech are putting on the ground.
Yes, thanks for this very important question. I think our experience has been, and also the interests of the diaspora communities we work with, to work through the informal sector, because I think it has the greatest capacity for growth and development in many, probably most of the African countries. And I think that is, from our experience, the main issue is lack of access to finance, basically, because for the microcredit and loan sector, in many places, the interest rates and conditions are such that it's almost impossible for small entrepreneurs who do not have collateral to have access to that. So I think it is this gap is the greatest gap for rapid growth on that side. And from our experiences with this instrument of being able to match grants for those small entrepreneurs, our experience has been that they have been using that very clearly to create jobs and also gradually formalize their businesses. So it's not an easy recipe to jump to full standard jobs and as well as full formalization. But that is, I think, also a common interest if you particularly support this group to move ahead. And we have many businesses who also open bank accounts. And of course, mobile money is key to go very broad in this sense. And I think there's increasingly more instruments available that can be used, and that will also help to formalize. So it's access to finance, but it's also access to skills that is very critical, and access to markets, I think, and that can be supported by those platforms. And I think the reach of mobile and digital is increasing. So that is also important to see that we can reach out beyond the big cities and the urban centers, and that works already very well. In our program, we have like 40% of the grants and support to the small entrepreneurs outside the city centers. So I think it is a good potential that needs further support by skilling and also giving access to markets. But I think it's a great potential that we can harness more.
Well, thank you, Wolfram, for bringing these issues that are really critical. I think on time we are a little bit strict, but I would like to have from each of you what are the key takeaways that we can come out from this discussion, but not only from the discussion, but based on the 2 days. And then what, according to you, what kind of recommendations we can make to the different actors? I think here we have the gathering of the key stakeholders are represented. So what can we all do together? So next time when we come and then we meet, so we say we've done well compared to what we've done last time. So what are the key takeaways from your different perspectives, either from the migration, from the informal sector, financial inclusion, diaspora, the development partners? So what can each of us do better so we can advance this agenda? So I will start with you on the migration side, if you want, or broadly also.
Okay, thank you very much. I think one thing we need to remember, key to our discussion today, is the GCM. And we have to remind ourselves on the commitments of the GCM. Then going back to the International Migration Review Forum, when we were reviewing the GCM, seeing the progress that was made, there were key commitments that were highlighted that we really have to follow. One, to ensure fair recruitment and decent work for migrant workers. Protect migrants, which, as I mentioned here, we really need to make sure that we protect them. We have proper policy regulations in place to provide a conducive environment for them. If you're talking about remittances, investment, do we have those policies to actually make sure that we protect, we create the conducive environment for them to invest? Diaspora engagement. That's very, very critical. How do we bring people together? How can they make sure that we win their trust? As we know very well, in most cases, there's a lot of mistrust, distrust among the diaspora and their governments. So how do you bring that together so they have that trust and they can invest home very well? In terms of the commitment for the GCM, I really want us to look back on the Objective 19, where we have to create conditions for migrants and diaspora to fully contribute to development back home. Then the SDG target 8.8, again, on protecting the rights of migrant workers. Then I wanted also to emphasize on data research, which is very critical, mainstreaming migration into national development plans. And again, countries have to be champions for GCM. In this region, we have only Kenya and Uganda. And Kenya is the only country that has contributed financial to the MPTF. Where are the other countries? If we are committed, let's put the money there. As my sister here mentioned, how do we move forward to actually tap into that trust fund? But that can only happen if we provide resources to that.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. So, Paddy, what can we do together?
I would have to nod to everything that Sharon has said in terms of the emphasis on decent work, the emphasis on social protection, but also the emphasis on skills recognition, because I think this remains one of the very critical points moving forward. And that really, I think, is one of the places in which when we would address these kind of objectives, I think we would also see a growth in remittances and a growth also in what migrants and diaspora would have available for investment. But I think also more critically is pathways, and more pathways, because the more we have migrants and migrants regularized, that probably also means that we've done a lot in terms of moving them into a place where they have access to a labor market and access to more finances, and also that means that trickles down to how much they're able to send back home. I will also just like to come back again in terms of the GCM, because I think that we now have an instrument after such a long time and after such a long deliberation and at that high level that we could look at, of course, complementary with other global frameworks. How do we really make sure that we are providing countries with a tool that allows them to measure progress for the sake of migrants and not just a ticking exercise in voluntary reports? So we're really looking forward, I think, to the task that has been given to the United Nations network work stream that's really looking at this limited set of indicators, but that it really does focus from a migrant perspective. Participation is very critical, and here we're talking, I'm going to zoom in really on participation of the diaspora, because I think that you cannot do anything for diaspora without diaspora, and the same goes for migrants. Nothing for migrants without migrants, and so they need to be in the center. And I think that this center also talks about participation at that very local level, participation at national level. I think we've seen some very good examples in political systems where you even have diaspora being placed in parliaments and so on and so forth. But I think that we can indeed learn from what GIZ has also just shared today in terms of, diaspora participation beyond looking at the remittance pocket, but also looking at them in terms of harnessing some of the skills that they can bring forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Francesco, one or two takeaways in 1 minute, please.
I think if we have to summarize a couple of ideas on areas where we should work, I think I see two particularly. One, we have to continue the work of reducing the cost of transfer, and this is to be done at global level. I spoke about the engagement that we have as a European Union. The work is to be intensified in the context of the G20 Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion. And I think there is a commitment by the participating countries to work more and better on that, but indeed they should be stimulated further. And particularly we should also, as been said, focus on the specific corridors that are still problematic. And it would be important to have also not simply reporting done by the countries, but also reporting done independently on the country. So World Bank and IFAD, I think it should be entrusted with this task also to monitor more how the costs are going. The second area of work I think is crucial to be mentioned is the work for the use of remittances into the development, but not necessarily simply as a life-saving activity, so just indeed for social initiatives, increasingly more for investment that promote the transition, the modernization of the economy and of the society, and particularly the green transition. We need to connect these dots. The remittances have a huge potential for transformation, but indeed, work has to be done at technical level to connect money, people, and good ideas, and to create an enabling environment. This is a work on where the donors, the international community, UN organization can do more, but there is a specific responsibility also by the countries of origin that need to understand that they have to privilege the investors coming from their own also people that are ready to work hard to transform things. I mean, rule of law and enabling societies and safety conditions, this is key. And we are ready to work on that. We are already working on that, but much more needs to be done. And we really hope to work also with the partners of the civil society. And this forum is the kind of event also that allow to facilitate this process, because here migrant organization, civil society organization contribute to set the agenda and are very active, are real protagonists in this story.
Thank you very much. Wolfram, 1 minute or less.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I fully agree with what Francesco was saying, and specifically the demands and points raised also by Paddy. I think I would just add it is important to harness the digital innovative potentials we have, and to do that really in form of co-creation with the diaspora. There is a lot of expertise and knowledge already there, and there is also a high potential from the local entrepreneurs, and specifically also the female entrepreneurs' experiences in the informal sector, to learn from that and put that into public-private pilots. And I think we do that already. And I think the next step is really to see how we can upscale those pilots and make them a reality for more people to have be beneficiaries of these innovative potentials we can use together by using private innovations from the digital space, and as well as the knowledge from the ground. I think the technology is there, the experience is there, and the diaspora has to play a key role for doing that. So I think that is important in terms of giving more space in fora for those voices, and also for the youth in that respect. And one concrete idea on the side of the host countries, I think it would be really conducive, for example, also for having opportunities to do tax reductions for direct investments from private diaspora persons to development programs, projects also on the grassroots level in, for example, African countries. And I think that would be something which would be very helpful for people who live in the diaspora and are very committed to moving the sustainable economic development of their home communities forward.
Thank you very much, Wolfram. So I think I'll attempt to summarize very, very quickly what we've been hearing. I think we all agree that the starting point when it comes to remittances and diaspora investments, it's the people themselves. And then we have the GCM commitments. So that's the starting point that we have to recall that there is need to achieve or implement the different objectives over there in terms of enhancing the migrants' conditions, the protection, putting in place the right policy regulations to protect them while on the move, but also in the host countries, promoting the decent work, social protection. All these issues are critical and they are very important. So the issue about the importance of data again. Data and data and data, we cannot overemphasize this. I think we need it at all levels, on all areas that we are talking about. When we talk about promoting remittances, so here we are talking about two aspects. It's market and policies. So the market, we've been talking about the fintech, all the solutions that are over there, but all these come also in the under the promoting the access remittances, but also promoting the use. So when you talk about access, we are putting in place the right infrastructure, all the regulation, the environment, and I think when also we talk about that is the diaspora engagement that it has been also highlighted. I think yesterday I was in the remittance, not the diaspora track, and then we've heard about Ethiopia's experience, the agency that they have in facilitating engagement with the diaspora, putting in place the right platform where they can access information, which sometimes, or most of the times, is one of the key issues hindering diaspora to invest back home. Because if they don't have information about the facilities, the incentives, how even they can set up a business or invest back home, I think that is one of the key issues. I mean, in terms of increasing the impact, we've been talking also about the importance of promoting the fintech, more options to users, and then also in general promoting the diaspora investments. So all these issues have been highlighted, and I think I've had the pleasure to have an excellent panel members bringing their experience, their engagement, and then also enlightening us about what we can all do together. So with all this, I think we have the ingredients for the recipe on how we can move forward. So with this, I would like to thank again our panel members, and then we end this session. So thank you very much, and please applaud.